just start at the beginning of the book and read Rabia's biography, and then go ahead with it. We're just, in other words, we're going to go through the book from the beginning.
Okay.
That's how we're going to work it. Because otherwise, it'll be just so hard to keep track of what's what and where we are, and this will be a good way to do it.
Yes.
Cindy, are you back, or you just haven't gone yet?
I'm back. I might have to go for another minute or something, but I'm back for now.
Okay, did you want to read Rabia's biography? Is your throat up to it?
Well, I'm having some stuff going on in my household right now that I keep having to deal with. So it'd probably be better if somebody else read it.
I can read Shankara.
Okay. It's just, I need to deal with this stuff.
Okay.
You want me to read, Brother Shankara?
Yes, Haima, please do.
Okay, sure. Can you all hear me? now?
Read slowly, please.
Okay, sure. Rabia?
Rabia.
It's Rabia.
Mm-hmm.
When God said, "My hands are yours," I saw that I could heal any creature in this world. I saw that the divine beauty in each heart is the root of all time and space. Rabia of Basra, 717 to 801, is without doubt the most popular and influential of female Islamic saints and a central figure in the Sufi tradition. She was born nearly 500 years before Rumi. And although it is rarely said, she, perhaps more than any other poet, influenced his writings. Rabia grew up in a part of ancient Mesopotamia that is now Iraq. She was the fourth daughter of impoverished parents, and a story connected with her birth tells of the Prophet Muhammad appearing to her father in a dream to tell him that his daughter would be revered as a great saint. The sensuousness of Rabia's poetry may be a bit shocking to some, though it was probably more so in its originals. Even conservative scholarly translations cannot get around its, at times, graphic eroticism. Many myths surround her life and poems, but one has been recently confirmed by one of the most respected contemporary spiritual teachers, and may well be a source of this sensuality. When Rabia was quite young, she became separated from her parents. Perhaps they died, and while wandering homeless, she was literally stolen and sold into slavery. Because of her remarkable beauty, a famous brothel bought her for a large sum, and it is believed she lived and was forced to work as one might in a brothel for many years. She wrote, "What a place for trials and transformation did my lover put me. Never once did he look upon me as if I were impure." Dear sisters, all we do in this world, whatever happens, is bringing us closer to God. Rabia may be a timely spiritual voice for women of this century, especially for any woman or man who has had to suffer the emotionally crippling degradation of unwanted touch. She was both physically and sexually abused from an early age, yet still became one of the greatest women saints and poets known to history. When she was about 50, she was given her freedom, most likely bought for her by a rich patron. The remaining years of her life were devoted to meditation and prayer, and she would often see visitors seeking guidance about their lives. Many miracles are attributed to her, and apparently she was offered large sums for curing people. I like a comment attributed to her when refusing a bag of gold. "Dear, if you leave that, flies will gather as if a horse just relieved himself, and I might slip in it while dancing." As this great woman once wrote, "Show me where it hurts," God said, and every cell in my body burst into tears before his tender eyes. He has repaid me, though, for all my suffering in a way I never wanted. The sun is now in homage to my face because it knows I have seen God. That was not his payment. The soul cannot describe his gift. I just spoke about the sun like that because I like beautiful words and because it is true. Creation is in homage to us. That's the end.
And this last line and what she said about the sun is very reminiscent of what St. Francis of Assisi said in one of his poems. God's admiration for us is infinitely greater than anything we can conjure up for him. Creation is in homage to us. It's an interesting and very provocative idea. So, who would like to read the first poem? Heidi, would you like to read it?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
It's a really short one.
Yes.
One day. And can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. One day. One day, he did not leave after kissing me. Should I read it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. One day. One day, he did not leave after kissing me.
Cindy, are you back, or are you just are you still dark over there? I guess Cindy's busy. I think with her cats.
Okay.
Now, though it's from a very different time and a very different context in terms of spiritual path, what the great Hindu teacher Shankara tells us is that we begin to have experiences of the divine presence, And that comes and goes and comes and goes. And Mirabai speaks of this, of course, very much. And then finally, the presence is continuous. And so that's how I hear this poem.
Okay.
One day he did not leave after kissing me. So what the implication is, there were many kisses, many experiences of the divine presence. But one day he did not leave. Anybody else got anything to say about this? I think, yeah, go ahead. Whoever that was, go ahead.
Well, it's Liam.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just had one comment that I thought was interesting. Yeah, because I guess what you shared resonated about having a momentary experience with God, and I know that the He here is capitalized, and that is what is being suggested. But as I read it, first, right, and had I not known the context of like what this poem was or who wrote it, based on what we read about her, Rabia's, background of being abused, right? It kind of was interesting how the like it's so short, but there's so much meaning to it, I guess. And I just am kind of a little overwhelmed with like how much emotion it stirs up in so many different ways in terms of what it meant to her, I guess, autobiography, like in the sense of being her experience, but then also her experience with, I guess, with God. It's just like amazing how rich and deep this brief poem is. So that's all I kind of had to say.
Thank you, Liam. Indeed. There's a very good reason that Daniel Ladinksy, opens the book of poetry with this poem. Like you say, it stirs up a great deal. And it is interesting, of course, in the context of her life. And it's very interesting in the context of what we hear from all these other saints that are in the book. They all have this experience of divine presence. That's why these are characterized as love poems from God. These people become the instrument. And of course, Hafiz opens the section on his, saying that he is just the breath. He is a hole in a flute that the breath of Christ blows through. So it's beautiful. So, who would like to read the next poem? Unless there's something else to say about the first one. Somebody want to read Our Beauty?
I'll read it. I'm back.
Hey, hello there. Yes, please.
Okay. Our beauty. Live with dignity, women. Live with dignity, men. Few things will enhance our beauty as much. I'll read again. Live with dignity, women. Live with dignity, men. Few things will enhance our beauty as much. Dignity.
Does anyone share my opinion that dignity cannot be faked?
Well, you can try to fake it.
Yes.
It's not very dignified.
Yeah. So somebody, what in your opinion, what do you hear when you hear dignity? What is it that she's talking about? How would we define it?
I would say it is kind of poise under any circumstance.
I think you're absolutely right. So poise, grace,
Self-respect.
centeredness, self-respect, yes. It's a word that describes what Krishna talks about in the Gita as the Stita Prajna, the person who is composed and graceful, that is full of grace and poise in any situation. Anybody else got anything to say about it?
And oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Who was it that was going to speak up?
Heidi, just go ahead. I don't know who it was.
I don't either. And I just think, all the grace and poise and all the things that were just mentioned, to me, it's kind of like, how you talk about beauty from within, as opposed to, physical beauty. And so I kind of hear some of those attributes as an inside job, if you will.
Yeah.
So, beauty is from within, and and all that.
Yeah, it's interesting that she doesn't talk about anything having to do with your exterior attributes that enhance your beauty as much as dignity, which, as you just pointed out so aptly, Heidi, that is something that comes from within. And as we said at the very beginning, cannot be faked. It's kind of comical when you see people trying to act dignified. Okay.
Can I just say too about, we're reading, Rabia here, and I've never heard of her until I started reading this book
Uh-huh.
with this group. But I have to say, in the last, 4 days, I have talked to 2 different Rabias, one in person and one on the phone.
Really? What interesting synchronicity.
Yeah, so I just throw that out there. And so now I can ask them, were you named after the famous poet?
Right.
Anyways.
Well, thank you for contributing that.
Yeah.
It is an interesting synchronicity that just after you began reading her, that you find out that the name has not disappeared from the world.
So the word dignity kind of makes me think of the word humility. They're different, of course. Dignity to me is more self-respect, and humility is, it's kind of like the checks and balances on dignity, because dignity can be, when someone's trying to act dignified, like a cat. a cat that just did something really silly or that it didn't mean to do, and then it just dignified. But it's pride and dignity. They can be related, but if you have dignity, that kind of real self-respect that's not just pride in your, how people see you, and you have humility, which is kind of other respect. If you have self-respect and other respect, then your beauty is quite enhanced, I think. Perhaps, I don't
No, I agree.
know.
Yes, indeed.
I think I agree with Cindy, Brother Shankara. Dignity and humility, they seem to go together, hand in hand, even though they are quite polar opposites. Without humility, how can a person be dignified, right?
Yes, yes,
So I think
yes.
Truly dignified, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, dignity, when being faked, comes across as aloofness or nose in the air. And no one who's behaving that way is going to be humble.
We see that so much in the world, in today's world, right? We all see that
Oh, Lord, yes.
quite a bit.
So who would like to read the next poem, The Perfect Stillness?
If no one wants to, I'll be happy to read this. I'll wait for somebody to come forward.
I can read the next one.
Okay.
The perfect stillness. Love is the perfect stillness and the greatest excitement and most profound act, and the word almost as complete as his name.
That's saying a lot.
Yes. It's interesting that she leads with the perfect stillness. All of us have at one time or another in our prayer or meditation or whatever it is that we do, we've reached that perfect stillness, if only for a moment. And it reminds me of the line from the Judeo-Christian scriptures that says, "My name is silence." I can't remember if God says that to Moses or who it's said to maybe one of the other prophets. The perfect stillness. And then she goes on to elaborate. And her gentle humor, I think, comes through in the last lines. And the word almost as complete as his name. Anybody else want to chime in on this one?
Brother Shankara, I remember one thing from Bhagavad Gita. It's about a tortoise. The turtle, it stays on one side of the bank, and his babies, the turtle's babies are on the other side. All tortoise does is just a glance at them, just to look at them quietly. And that gives the nourishment to the babies. Nothing, she says, never, she doesn't even have to feed them with food. Just a glance, gentle glance at them. And that seems like a godly thing where it gives nourishment to the babies. I read in Bhagavad Gita, one of the chapters, I forgot the number of the chapter, but I will next time, I'll remember that. That little story was there about papayas.
Mm,
Seems very much in coordination with this stillness, calmness.
yes.
I just wanted to say really quick, I don't recall where I heard this or who said it, but I remember hearing someone saying within the past month or so that, you know, one can only create noise, they cannot create stillness.
Mm,
And that quote just came to my mind. Well, especially as you, Brother Shankar also referred to silence. So that came to mind.
you know, the word stillness, of course, means more than silence. It means that moment when everything is suspended. There's silence, of course, but everything is suspended. And it's something that we reach through prayer and meditation. I like that. We can only create noise. We can't create stillness. There's this one of the there's a saying, don't speak unless you can improve on the silence. Speaking of Rabbia's humor, it really shows up in the next one. Who'd like to read this one? The way it goes.
I'll read it.
Yeah.
The way it goes. Sorry, I have a cat asking for favors. The way it goes. Why think God has not touched everything that comes to your desk? True, he may have kept the best for himself. That is just the way it goes.
Would you read that again?
I shall. The way it goes. Why think God has not touched everything that comes to your desk? True, he may have kept the best for himself. That is just the way it goes.
It is very poignant to think that God has touched everything.
What is the best that he has kept for himself? Could it be the unmanifest?
Well, that's a very good interpretation, I think. Yeah, I think that's a very good interpretation. I really hadn't come to any conclusion myself about what it might be the best. But I think that that's very. Anybody else have any other ideas what Rabia might mean by that? And we can think that Ladinksy interpreted this correctly. I really believe we can think that. What might be the best that he has kept for himself?
I would have to disagree with her on this. I don't think that God keeps the best for him or herself. But she does, so I don't know what she means.
Well, the contrast is everything that comes to your desk versus everything that doesn't. And so Swayam's idea of the unmanifest, but there are many things in creation that we don't see, that are not manifest to us, that don't come to our desk, which I think is such a really nice turn of phrase.
I think it's important to see that he used the word, or she used the word, he used the word desk, because a desk is where you work on projects.
Mm-hmm.
So God's keeping the best projects for himself. That's what came to me.
Very good.
Brother Shankar?
Yes, dear.
My understanding is it seems it's a figurative expression, not a literal sense, desk to desk. That's my feeling. It's like everything that comes to us, everything that we want, it doesn't happen a lot of times. Maybe God is keeping the best for a while, and then it may come later on when it is ready, when we're ready for it, when we are really ready for it. That's what my interpretation within myself is. I could be wrong, but sometimes we want things to happen. They don't happen. We keep wondering, why isn't it not happening? There may be something best is not yet come. It's like an interview, going to a job. You go to so many interviews, you don't get the job. But I always tell myself, best is not yet there. The best will come at the end, and it will. Eventually, you will get the best at the end. That's how I interpreted this point.
That's how we know it's the best, huh?
Yes, at the end, you will get eventually the one you deserve. I think I thought it figuratively. She wrote the poem.
Well, that is definitely the optimist's view.
Yes.
Heidi, since you're so new to this, is there anything that you heard in this, or that occurred to you when you read this? I
Well,
don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to comment.
sure. No, I hear what everyone is saying, and when I just read that first sentence there, everything that comes to your desk, like I just thought of that as everything that comes into my life.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a project that I'm working on, or I don't know. I just saw it more as a inclusive part of my life.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what the best is either from that he keeps to himself. I don't know. I like all the interpretations everyone is giving, but I really don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm not certain I know either, but I sure like what everyone has said.
Yeah.
Brother Shankar,
Yes, dear.
to me, in some ways, it just expresses his ineffability, our inability to comprehend him and to know just how much he knows. He touches everything that comes across our desk that we're aware of, but he's indescribable. So he's kept, in that way, the best to himself, his ineffability.
That's a very nice interpretation also. And the way she ends it, it's just like, let's not concern ourselves over much about this. That's just the way it goes. This, if we consider this to be a realized soul, speaking about, that's just the way it goes. Well, I think we can take that pretty seriously.
One thing that came up to my mind during all the shares about this is one thing you frequently say, Brother Shankara, about the, I guess, process of replacing lower samskaras with higher samskaras.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, I think it was Kat who just shared about the ineffability. It's, it's like no matter how high of a samskara or, I may, I guess, replace or attain today, there's always a higher. And it's just kind of like and I think you say it frequently also, the, if you think you have a grasp on God, like think again. So
Yes.
it's like, right. So it's like, no matter how enlightened I may feel a certain point, on any given day, there's always a higher, like the Jim Morrison song, the Doors song, Light My Fire. We can go much higher. Like there's always another, because it's infinite, right? So
Well,
that's just kind of like,
there's the word, all right. There's the word. There is, as Swami Brahmananda once said, light, more light, more light. Is there no end to it? And that's, yes. There is no end to it, at least from the point of view of these wonderful ones.
Yeah, I could add something. This is Justine.
Hello, Justine.
3 very quick things come to mind that kind of relate to this. And one is Jung saying, be careful of wisdom you have not earned. Another is the moment when Krishna reveals the fullness of himself to Arjuna and Arjuna can't take it.
Mm-hmm.
And thirdly, there are some that I've seen in some documentaries about psychedelics that believe that the brain is a filter that filters reality down to something we can tolerate and we can bear. And so I think to a certain extent, if we were to see the best all the time, I don't know that we could take it, and I am certain that we couldn't function in this world.
Very well said, Justine. All 3 aspects of what you just said are right on the money. And yes, that is one, that last that you said is one very prevalent among people who do clinical studies on how the mind works, that it does take the infinitude and reduce it to the finitude, reduce it to the finite. And that definitely is what Don Juan Matus says also. It's one of the most important things that he says. So, and of course, in his training of disciples, the training of his apprentices, he didn't call them disciples. They use these psychedelic drugs, but not recreationally in any way, simply to open up the filter so that we get disimprisoned. I think I'd like to read this next one myself. Die before you die. The reason I say this is I've just been thinking about this and actually wrote a tanka about it today. Die before you die. Ironic, but one of the most intimate acts of our body is death. So beautiful appeared my death, knowing who then I would, so beautiful appeared my death, knowing who then I would kiss. I died 1,000 times before I died. Die before you die, said the Prophet Muhammad. Have wings that feared ever touched the sun? I was born when all I once feared I could love. So I'm going to read it again from the beginning. Die before you die. Ironic, but one of the most intimate acts of our body is death. So beautiful appeared my death. Knowing who then I would kiss, I died 1,000 times before I died. Die before you die, said the Prophet Muhammad. Have wings that feared ever touched the sun? I was born when all I once feared I could love. And this is just, to me, it's just overwhelmingly beautiful. The idea that where there is fear, there cannot be love. And where there is true love, there cannot be fear. So I was born when all I once feared I could love. This is one of those that just seems to me, if you spend enough time with it, will bring you to a very tender state, a very vulnerable state. Anyone else have anything to say about it? Please.
Well, this, of course, makes me think of Vivekananda's letter to a friend, the very end, where he says, "The first to love all without thinking worships God."
Mm. Yes, fearing nothing, holding back from nothing. Have wings that feared ever touched the sun? Well said, Cindy.
I was wondering what she means by this part of the poem where she says, I was born when all I once feared I could love.
Well, if we think of born in the spiritual sense, the second birth, which is what Muhammad is pointing to when he says, die before you die, then you'll be reborn in the spiritual sense. So I was born, I was illumined when all I once feared I could love. And you can imagine how much there was in Rabia's life that she knew fear of. I mean, losing your parents at a tender age, being homeless, then kidnapped, sold into sexual slavery. Good God. And yet she says she never felt as if she were judged. She never felt as if she was judged impure. So, does that make sense to you, Swayam, what I said? Is there more that you want to say about that?
No, I think that makes perfect sense. Yes, when we are spiritually awakened, gradually our fear of so many things in the worldly realm slowly fades. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, there's another poem in her section where she says that she had to learn to love every hand that harmed her before she could be free.
Amazing.
That is incredible. It really is.
Yes, these people are. I like your use of the word incredible, Heidi. It does not seem credible to us on the surface of things that this is a reality, and yet here they are, saying what they say.
I'm going to have to take leave. The Vedanta Life Academy class begins shortly. Thank you so much. I think I like this format of
Good.
starting. So thank you so much, and I will see you all next time.
All right. That's why thanks for coming.
Thank you.
What time is it anyway?
It's about 8:50.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
I think that for some, fear, especially when I read this last stanza, I was born when all I once feared I could love. This is a bit tangential, I realize, and is not her intent, but that sounds to me like an Agori passage. You know, for those of you who know who the Agori are, Agora means fear, and means not, not fear, not fearful. So for many people, I think fear is a powerful motivator. I'm not going to let this fear stop me from doing what I need to do. And I think also when we're afraid of death, we're still in the womb of illusion. And when we cease to fear death through God, we are no longer trapped in the womb of illusion.
Right. Very well said, all of that. And I just love the lines, so beautiful appeared my death, knowing who then I would kiss, I died 1,000 times before I died. In other words, she approached her own death. She approached this idea of the death of the small self. This is a little indication of her spiritual journey. And I'm sure there were many times in her life that she wished that she would simply die.
Sexual abuse creates a great deal of fear in a person.
Oh, yes.
And
There's just constant apprehension.
Yeah, it's comforting to read from someone else who, is speaking about those things rather directly if you are willing to abstract.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got a few minutes more. Anybody want to read the next poem? Catherine, would you like to read it?
I would love to, Brother Shankar, but I'm not able to at the moment.
Okay. Sounds like you're in the car.
I am. I'm in the car, yes.
Okay.
I'm not driving.
How about you, Liam? Would you like to read it?
Yeah, sure. I'll read it. I can. The moment's depth. The moment's depth is greater than that of the future. And from the fields of the past, what can you harvest again? Dried flowers I have from a meadow laid in with her and moved across her breasts. When I need love sent, I touch them. A mine with jewels can be the past for the heart. But who goes to an old mine that only made you sad? I have seen a man walk on a high stretched rope, holding a long pole for balance. Memories and dreams can do that. Be a great help. The soul does not understand the word seasons. The petals on the sun can only be touched now. The beauty of dried flowers, how can they compare to him?
I don't know about everyone else, but I'd like you to read it over from the beginning if you would.
Absolutely. Let me just give me one moment too. I'm looking at a digital copy, so I just want to have it, the whole thing in there. All right. The moment's depth. The moment's depth is greater than that of the future. And from the fields of the past, what can you harvest again? Dried flowers I have from a meadow I laid in with her and moved across her breast. When I need love sent, I touch them. A mine with jewels can be the past for the heart. But who goes to an old mine that only made you sad? I have seen a man walk on a high stretched rope, holding a long pole for balance. Memories and dreams can do that. Be a great help. The soul does not understand the word seasons. The petals on the sun can only be touched now. The beauty of dried flowers, how can they compare to him?
It's interesting how she doesn't she doesn't judge anything. She simply compares its value. She doesn't say it's bad to think about the future. She just says the moment's depth is greater than that of the future. And from the fields of the past, what can you harvest again? And then she says, here's what you can harvest. And so sweet, so powerful. When I need love sent, I touch them. And one of the most powerful lines, it seems to me, is the soul does not understand the word seasons. And if you read Jill Bolte Taylor's book about her experience of living in the eternal present of the heart's being, the heart's abode. It really illuminates this line. The soul, the heart, that part of us that's transcendent does not understand the word seasons. And then, of course, the use of the word petals, contrasting with her dried flowers. The petals of the sun can only be touched now. So we've just got 1 minute. How does everybody else feel about this new format? Swayam said she liked it. How about everybody else? You like it?
Yes, Brother Shankara, I really like this. We're learning a lot more of each poem from each poet. This is really nice. I'm glad you changed the format.
Good.
This is great.
It was Cindy's suggestion.
That's great.
Cindy's really the moderator for this class. I only got started moderating it tonight because Cindy was absent at the beginning.
Well, that's not exactly true. Because I'm not going to be able to be here a lot. This is genuinely peer-led. So I hope that people will, continue to want to read and talk about these things and,
But it was your idea to change the format.
It was. Yes,
That
it was.
much was true.
It was.
All right. Well, I think we're going to continue in this format. So until next week. Amen. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us, and to all joyous and suffering beings everywhere. So good night, everyone. Until next time.
Good night. Thank you.
Brother Shankara, good night, everybody.
Good night.
night.
Good night.
This was great. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Okay. Good night, Heidi.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Night, Kat.